Okay, before the actual video starts, a little bit of a story time. Hopefully this is going to be the weirdest video I ever upload. What we have here is somewhat of a found footage situation. I recorded this Wheel of Time video back in September and absolutely nailed it, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you. At least that's how I felt when I was doing it. Sometimes you're just on a roll, you know what I mean? I said all the right things. I really liked the way I was coming across. It was gonna be a banger of a video. After I recorded it, I went to check out my little phone situation, and it turns out that I never pushed the record button. So instead of recording this video I was very excited about, it turns out I was actually just talking to myself in my office for 20 minutes. So after that happened, I was super frustrated with myself, like very upset. And I decided to do a second take, but the second take is just not the same. It never is. And I was obviously like not feeling it. I was kind of distracted, and towards the end my kids started making a lot of noise and hollering for me, and I ended up just like cutting it short at the very end, and I thought I deleted it. Well, I didn't delete it. I found it today while I was waiting to pick up my kids from school and just scrolling through my camera roll, and I was like, oh my gosh, this video is still here. I watched it and it wasn't that bad. And I was like, you know what? I still want this video to go out because first of all, my hair looked amazing. I only had my hair like that for a couple of weeks and it never made it into a video. So that hair deserves to be shown, right? And also I was like, honestly, most of what I wanted to say still got in the video. And I am excited to put this content out there because I hope it could be used as a tool for someone who may be digging the show or vibing off of the excitement surrounding the show. And they're trying to decide whether or not they should read it. And they want to hear from somebody who's going to give them an honest answer, because I love the Wheel of Time, but I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all story, and I don't necessarily recommend it to everybody. So I patched this video together. There's no ending, but here it is. Enjoy, and thanks for watching this weird video. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping your scroll and clicking on my video. I am excited today because I'm going to talk about one of my very favorite book series, The Wheel of Time. So, as you guys may have heard, there is a big TV show premiering in November on Amazon Prime TV for The Wheel of Time. And to my surprise and delight, many of my friends, Facebook, Instagram, and even people in real life have come to me and said, The Wheel of Time, isn't this the book series that you like so much? Should I read it before the show comes out? So I wanted to make this video so I could have a resource to point people to when they ask me this question, but also just kind of get it off my chest and say what I think. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think that this book series is necessarily for everyone. So I wrote down some stuff and I brought my handy dandy clipboard, so hopefully I won't forget anything. But I just want to go over what I think. You know, is The Wheel of Time worth reading? And if you are going to start it, you know, here's some advice, some things I had wished people had told me, things to look forward to, you know, expectations to check, noise to ignore. So here we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with The Wheel of Time and why I think it might offer me a slightly unique perspective. So I read The Wheel of Time for the first time in 2019. I had just taken a little break from reading, about 10 years. About 10, 12 years. And I was just getting back into reading for fun. And I'd always liked fantasy because when I was young, of course, I'm like Harry Potter generation. I read Chronicles of Narnia, love Lord of the Rings, you know, dabbled in all those, you know, things we've all read, right? Or most of us. But like I said, I didn't read for a really long time. And when I got back into reading for fun, I knew fantasy was going to be for me because it's just how I'm wired. So I'd read a few things, and then I had a friend who was like, you should read Wheel of Time. And he's a lifer, you guys. Like he's somebody that's been reading these books since the beginning. And he has spent most of his life encouraging people to read this series, but with not a lot of success. Because it feels super daunting, right? It's 15 books. It's a 14-book series with a prequel. And so when he heard that I was getting back into reading and was looking for some recommendations, I mean, he was on it. And I was interested. It sounds like everything I'm looking for, it checks all the boxes, you know, epic fantasy, loyal, fandom, you know, it has a reputation of being wonderful. But I just really wasn't ready for that type of a commitment. I mean, this sounds more like a bucket list type series, you know, it's like on the Mount Rushmore of things you have to read if you're a fantasy fan. And I was just looking for something a little more low key. Well, that fall, like I said, I started reading in September of 2019. That fall, I found myself just really looking for some distraction, something that I could really immerse myself in. And that's when I was like, maybe this is the time to read Wheel of Time because, you know, it's big. There's cultures and names and places and magic systems, and it's just so much. It's so big. And I was, like I said, I was really looking for something to escape into. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. You know, I'm just going to go for it. So I read it in 2019 and it was exactly what I was looking for. But as far as videos go about the Wheel of Time, trust me guys, there are a lot of good videos about the Wheel of Time on YouTube. And I mean, like thousands of them. There are some content creators that have put out amazing Wheel of Time material, and I recommend it all. Like, it's excellent. But what I found was that there's this spectrum of Wheel of Time fans, and for the most part, now I'm not saying this is true across the board, but for the most part, it seemed like most of the content I was finding on Wheel of Time was either coming from this end of the spectrum with people who they've loved it their whole life. They've been reading it since the first release day. They've been immersed in the fandom. They have been on message boards. They've been in chat rooms. They've been dissecting it and reading it and rereading it every year. And like, they live, breathe, die Wheel of Time. They've loved it since they were born. They've loved it since before they were born. Their dad loved it. Their mom loved it. Like, they're just, I mean, they are everything. Everything Wheel of Time, that's them. That content is there, and it's so good, you guys. But you're getting one very biased perspective because it's amazing. And then there's this other end of the spectrum, these people making videos, they didn't like it. They're good videos, it's great content, they're making valid points, but they didn't like it. They think it is, you know, too long, and it's not for them, it's not their style, or they just think it's trash. You know, these are the videos you're gonna find. I didn't find a ton of stuff in between. Obviously, I'm going to be much further towards this end of the spectrum because I love it. But I wasn't brought up with it. I was not, you know, I haven't been reading it since, I don't know, when did this book come out? 1991? I just made that up. I don't actually know when this book was released. Either way, like I said, there are a lot of fans. 1990, it was very close. There are a lot of fans who've been reading these since day one. And of course, it's very, very, very special to them. And you don't mess with someone's baby. I'm here to tell you that I love this series, but it's not necessarily my baby. So let's get into it. Like I said, if you're looking for Wheel of Time talk, there is a lot of it on YouTube. And I'm going to put down below some channels I recommend and for different reasons. But I don't know, hopefully this will be enough to make you decide whether you're going to give it a chance or not. So I love this series, but I feel like I can see it a little bit differently than some people. And so I'm just going to give you some examples of things I love about the series, things that keep me coming back and keep me fully immersed in the fandom. And then probably talk about some things that just aren't my favorite. Like, I either straight up did not like that, or I just have to get through it. But, you know, obviously my likes strongly outweigh my dislikes here. So first of all, what is this series about? So I mentioned before, it's very long. There are 15 books in the series. So there's not really a great elevator pitch that I've ever found for this book series. I have listened to people, you know, give their pitch, and everyone pitches this story differently. But I'll just tell you this, it is based on the farm boy chosen one trope, which I'm a big lover of classic tropes. If they're done well, I almost like all of them. But classic hidden farm boy chosen one is the premise of this story, or at least how it starts. But what makes it interesting to me is it's almost more realistic. So what if someone was told that you are the chosen one and you have to save the whole world? Everything in existence depends on you, okay? So that's not necessarily an original idea. But what if someone told you that? And then you went through all the natural, normal phases of processing this. So there's denial, there's anger, there's acceptance, but then you have to get the whole rest of the world on your side too. And so you have the whole rest of the world tied up in prophecy versus legend versus fact or fiction. Everyone is either against you or trying to disprove you or trying to get you on their side to wield power. It's showing what would actually happen if this chosen one really was real. He really had to save the whole world. But instead of just rallying the troops and going to fight the Dark One, he has to first get everyone to stop squabbling and listen at the same time and start facing the same direction to get to the end. That's what this series is about, in my opinion. And all of the dynamics and the hurdles and the complications that would go with trying to get all of these different cultures, kingdoms, power sources, all of these people on the same page and fighting towards the same goal. And man, if you like politics and maneuvering and just the complicated dynamics that go into a lot of fantasy, like, you're going to love this. So when it comes to some of my favorite things, this is a series, this is epic fantasy. There is a lot of magic. Sometimes it's popular and trendy within modern fantasy for there to be low magic. This is high magic. You're getting a lot of magic in your face all the time, and I love that. One thing I like about it too is that the magic feels very real. It feels tangible in their world, but it's not over-explained. Like, I don't need a hard magic system that I know that this is how you wield this power and this is how you make it work. And this is what you have to do to get it. You know, you have to ingest this or say this spell. Sometimes that gets a little overcomplicated for me. And it's not that I don't understand it. It's just that I don't really care. Like, I just want to know that, you know, Gandalf is magic because he's a wizard. And that's kind of what you get here. You're getting, you know, these people can wield magic because of X, Y, Z. And you just know that it's real in this world, and you move forward with that knowledge. But there's lots of magic, and I like that. The next thing I love about the series, the characters. We all know I'm a very character-driven reader, and the characters are just awesome in this series. Now, they can be very frustrating at times, but if you are committed, if you stick with this crew throughout the series, you are going to find some really, really satisfying character arcs. Almost every single character in this series that is introduced, you know, all of our main characters and our main secondary characters, they have beautiful arcs. They have an actual storyline where they start out one way, they grow, they earn it, and they end a completely, you know, the same person at their core, but they end in a completely different place because that's just realistic. You go through trials, time passes, you learn things, and you're different after experiencing some life. He really shows his characters going through life and it affecting them in appropriate ways. So the characters to me are absolutely what makes this story worth it, makes the time worth it, to see these people grow and change and experience things. And all the meanwhile, you start out being like, ugh, this kid, he can't even get his head on straight. And at the end, you're like, I'll die for you. So if you love good character work, it starts out maybe a little rocky, a little rough, but it ends in a way that, I don't know, the character work is just beautiful and absolutely worth it. Another thing that's totally amazing about this book series is the world building. So if you like fantasy because of where you get to go, I think you're really, really going to love the Wheel of Time. So the Wheel of Time world doesn't actually have an official name. I'm not going to tell you what us fans call it because I think it's kind of silly and it could be considered a mild spoiler. But no, the world here doesn't have an official name. But Like I said, if what draws you to fantasy is being transported and going somewhere else, you're going to love this. Absolutely the most rich world building I've ever read still to this day. It has cultures, languages, just so many different countries and kingdoms, and an awesome map that you're going to get to know really well. And man, like I said, when I first discovered this, I was looking to be completely transported to a different world, and I wanted my mind to be somewhere else, and this absolutely did it for me. So if world building is something you appreciate in fantasy, I don't think you're going to find much better than this. Something else that really drew me to the Wheel of Time and has kind of kept me engaged is the community. So the fandom. That might seem kind of a weird thing to like pitch as a selling point for the Wheel of Time, but the Wheel of Time has fans that have been loyal to the series and are still excited to read it and to talk about it for, like I said, since 1990. That's a super long time to be picking up all these loyal fans, and you're not going to be disappointed. Like, they can be intense, you guys. Like, this is their baby. They love it, but they love you too, and they want more fans. Overall, it has been a really welcoming fandom and something that's just really enriched my life, and I'm just really happy to be a part of it. I think I'll stop my gushing because, like I said, this is a really big series, and it's hard to talk about things you love without giving away possible spoilers. So I'm going to cut off my gushing right there. Trust me, the good parts are good. And the good parts are most of it. And yes, I think the journey is totally worth it. But I do want to talk about some things that, in my opinion, are, not the best selling points, but I do think everyone should know. So let's go ahead first with the big elephant in the room, and that is the slog that everyone talks about. Yes, everyone talks about it. I knew about the slog before I had even decided to read it. I had heard about, oh man, Wheel of Time, it's so good, it's epic, it's legendary, it's must-read fantasy. Oh, but there's a slog. I heard all of this before I even picked the first book up. Do I think there is a slog? Yes, I do. Do I think the slog is incredibly overhyped and not nearly as bad as people make it out to be? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to say books 8, 9, and 10 are what I consider the slog. Guys, it's not a lot happens and it's 3 big books. That's people's biggest complaint. And again, this is all my opinion. You're going to find Wheel of Time fans who say, I don't think there's any slog at all. I think every book is excellent. You're going to hear people tell you that they think the slog is bigger than that it's from book 6 on. If I have to be honest, I think books 8, 9, and 10 could have been significantly edited, trimmed down, and probably put into one big book. Again, I'll probably get some pushback on that, but I stand by what I say. Do I think there is a slog? Yes, but I do not think it's anywhere near terrible enough to not read it just because of that. Because trust me, by the time you get that far into the series, you're going to be pretty invested. And the things that people nitpick and complain about, they happen throughout the series, if I'm being somewhat honest. They're just more concentrated in this book, so you're going to be kind of used to them at that point anyway. So I don't think the slog is as big of a deal as some people make it out to be, and it's absolutely not enough for me to say, I don't think you should read it. There's a couple slow books in the middle. Nah, it's fine. Just push through. And like I said, even the bad books, the bad ones, still have plenty of interesting things in there to make them still a pretty decent book. Okay, the other downside, 15 books is a lot, okay? Now, I read all 14 books because the 15th book is a prequel. I read 14 books in 12 and a half weeks. I don't necessarily recommend doing it that way. I don't regret reading them that way. Like I said, it was exactly what I needed. I wanted to be fully immersed in something. But most people are not going to read them back to back to back to back to back like that. 15 books is a lot, and so that can be a turnoff to some people because that's a huge undertaking. So don't feel like you are required to read them all in a row. A lot of people do one a month, or they'll read one Wheel of Time book and then break it up with a smaller book or a lighter book or something from a different genre. Find a rhythm that works for you. But my biggest piece of advice is just don't feel obligated to it. If you feel yourselves getting frustrated with it or kind of tired of it, just take a break, walk away, come back when it sounds good, because the last thing you want to do is force yourself to read something and then develop a subconscious grudge toward it because it feels like a chore or something like that. That's definitely not what anybody wants to associate with something that they do for fun. So it's 15 books, it's a lot, but read them at your leisure or read them all at once. Do it however you like, but just make sure that you're enjoying it while you do it. Because you don't want to associate Wheel of Time, 15 books, reading in general with dread. There are a lot of characters. So I can't remember the number, but there's something like 2,000 named characters in these books. Don't let that scare you away. You don't have to know who they all are. But sometimes it can get a little confusing. It can get a little overwhelming to feel like, is this somebody I was supposed to remember? Here's the good news. If they are important, if it's somebody you're supposed to remember, if they're going to make a big mark on the plot in general, you won't get to forget who they are. So don't go into it with this sense of, am I doing it right? Should I be writing these names down? I feel overwhelmed. How will I remember this? Don't worry about that. If it's somebody significant, if you're supposed to remember them, you'll remember them. So yeah, I know people can see that and they'll go, you know, there's all these towns and these places, and these kingdoms and these different monarchs and rulers, and how am I going to keep this straight? It builds on itself. So you're going to get reintroduced to people. You're going to have things re-explained to you. And some people find that kind of frustrating, you know, having the magic system explained more than once or more than 7 times in a book, or having, you know, someone's... Okay, guys, as you can see, that's where I cut off. That's where I gave up. But in the end, this is what I say. If you are watching the Wheel of Time show and you find it to be exciting or interesting or intriguing, and you're kind of wondering, should I pick up this massive book series? Guys, just do it. Just pick up book 1 and see what you think. If it's not for you, you can still be a fan of the show and no one's going to think less of you. At least I won't. So pick up book 1, see what you think, and I hope you love the story as much as I do, and I hope it becomes special to you like it is for me, because I believe it's a special story and there is room in this big fandom for everybody. So however you decide to read it or however you decide to enjoy the material, even if it's just the show, I'm super glad you found Wheel of Time and I hope you enjoy. Bye.